Okay, welcome everyone to the Children in Nature Network's Family Nature Play webinar. We really appreciate your time and commitment to this important work, the work that you are doing and the work that we are doing, the work that we're doing together. We really appreciate your participation with us tonight and send you a big kudo for taking the time out of your night, probably with family or other plans that you could have had. So thank you again. We'd also like to thank Amy Perchak for being the behind-the-scenes wizard that got this show on the road for today. Want to acknowledge that Juan Martinez, our Director of Natural Leaders, is on the call with us as well. So thank you, Juan, for joining us tonight. Let's see. Before we really jump in, and I'm going to have the speakers introduce themselves today. But before we do that, I just want to thank them because the presenters that you will meet tonight and hear from are three of our natural leaders that went through Legacy Camp. And part of their commitment is to give back to the community, and part of that is they really worked hard on putting this webinar together. So I just want to acknowledge their time and commitment to this also, and really appreciate it. In addition to the three natural leaders, we have a family nature leader that you will also hear from, who likewise gave freely of her time as always. And we're going to go ahead and move now to introducing ourselves. So first up we have Ryan. Ryan, what I would like you to say is give your full name, where you are, what you do, and one word that describes you.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, Janice, and thanks to everyone that's here tonight. It's a huge honor to get to speak to all of you. My name is Ryan Spencer. I'm the current director of the Children in Nature Collaborative of Austin. I live in San Marcos, Texas, which is a small town just south of Austin, about 20 minutes. And what describes me, my one word, I'm going to say adventurous.
Awesome. Next up, we have Carolina from Chicago. Go for it, Carolina.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see so many people on the webinar. My name is Carolina. I am from Chicago. I'm actually located in the southwest suburbs of Chicago, where I am the founder and facilitator of Nature Discovery Club. It's a program that I do in the local preschool setting in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. One word that describes me is probably outgoing.
Thank you, Carolina. Next up, we have Alexis from Fish Camp, California.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis. I currently live in Fish Camp, California, which is 1 mile outside of the south entrance of Yosemite. I've been up here for only about 6 months. Up here, I work as a naturalist at an outdoor school, so I teach science, sort of ecology, wildlife ecology, and take students hiking in the Sierra National Forest. One word that probably sums up a lot of my personality is lively.
Thank you, Alexis. Next, we have Heather.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to get to be part of this webinar. I am Heather Culkin. I'm in Austin, Texas, where hopefully a bunch of you are going to come and visit in about a month. And I'm the director of Austin Families in Nature, and we're now a nonprofit, which happened a couple of months ago. And I would say a word that describes me is creative.
Thank you, Heather. Next up is me. In case you have never met me, my name is Janice Waisgood, and I am from San Diego, California. I am a teacher by training, but have had a career change, like many people do. I am currently the director of the Natural Families Network with the Children in Nature Network, and so I coordinate anything that has to do with families, which has grown exponentially in the last year and a half. So I'm very excited and honored to be in that position. And one word that describes me, I will say passionate. Okay, so the goals for today's webinar are to give you a sense of structured versus unstructured nature play. We're going to be talking about safety and impact of nature play. We're also going to give a little preview of some developmental characteristics of children. And the presenters, not myself, but the actual presenters are going to be describing and sharing some of their favorite structured activities. And finally, we're going to be closing with really focusing on the importance of unstructured play and how those activities make that bridge. So next we have, take it away for the developmental.
Thank you, Janice. I would like to start by, introducing everyone to the reference pages on the development and behavioral characteristics of children. You guys will be all provided with a link to these worksheets, and you'll be able to access them later. Today, we'll just hit a few key points, starting with the toddler and preschool age children through the 6th graders. First thing you want to remember when working with, a younger crowd, 2 to 4 years old, is that these children learn primarily through their senses and through experiences. They have a short attention span, so we want to keep things concise and, limit the structured activities from 5 to 15 minutes. Be sure to allow this age range to be curious and explore at their own pace. It's crucial for their development. It's always good to be safe, but definitely encourage that exploration. The second age range we'd like to talk about is the 5 to 8 years old. And this age range, you can easily consider incorporating concrete learning and encourage active participation. The children at this age range have that increasing attention span, but they do need time for that reflection and reasoning. Activities for this age range, we want to limit to 15 to 20 minutes. Lastly, the 9 to 11-year-olds, which are the 4th through 6th graders, they can take in a lot more information, but we want to be sure to include that time for active movement and gameplay. Activities for this age range are from 20 to 30 minutes. Positive encouragement and praise, will keep these kids really eager and enthusiastic. Like I mentioned previously, you will all have access to these worksheets, as a reference after the webinar is complete.
Okay, Ryan, you're up.
All right. Thank you so much. So when I first got asked to be a part of this webinar, I did some self-reflection and really tried to pull from a lot of the things that I had in my past experience. So a little bit about my past experience. I was a park ranger in Texas for 3 years in the state park system before I moved into the nonprofit sector. And pretty much what I would do is I would take families camping all over the state of Texas. So I would camp about 36 weekends out of the year. And, you had all different kinds of ages and family dynamics and all kinds of cool stuff. And so one of the ways that I would break down every single workshop that we would have is 3 basic principles: safety, impact, and fun. And it just made it easy for me to try and look at each workshop and figure out what would be best for the different participants. So that's what I've done in my slides today. So starting with safety, when we think about an activity in the outdoors, safety is one of the most important pieces that we have to take into consideration. We want to look at the mental and the physical health, and you want to look at all of your participants and see where they are in terms of their own confidence and skill level. You'll notice that I've created kind of a interesting diagram for you guys to look at, and I'm not sure if I can zoom into that diagram in the next slide or not. But you can see that there are three basic tiers of safety. On the different axes, you'll see that there is a probability of risk and there is a consequence on a 1 through 10 scale. If you look at the 1 to 1, 1 being the weakest consequence and the weakest probability of risk, the example is hug a tree. So the likelihood that a child would get hurt by hugging a tree is relatively low, and the consequence of them getting hurt by the tree in the process is also relatively low. The opposite end of that spectrum would be golfing in a thunderstorm. There's a relatively high probability of risk, and there's also a fairly severe consequence for participating in that activity. So we try to refrain from any of the activities that would be in the red area. Anything where the consequence is really high and the probability is really high is just not really necessary for most outdoor nature play. But you'll notice that there's a yellow category as well, and this category kind of serves as a buffer. As an outdoor educator for many years, you really just have to know your group. And for some people, that takes some time. Obviously, if you've never met your group before, you get to develop those relationships over several outings, and hopefully that'll be the case. But the best way to really get to know your group quickly is just to ask simple questions and be open with people and try to address their issues as they come up. So this is just a great way to look at safety across the board by measuring the probability of risk and the consequence of what could happen. The next thing that I want to talk about, going back, is impact. Impact is something that's really important to think about, because one of the primary reasons that we want to get children outside, other than the fact that it makes them healthier, happier, and smarter, is the reality that we want them to embrace and love the outdoors and fight to protect it in the long term. And so introducing principles of leave no trace and setting the example by following the park rules is a great way to do that. And as the outdoor educator, the instructor, you're the one responsible for setting the tone of the activity. So hopefully you can set the appropriate tone in the process. At the same time, you don't want to reduce whatever activity it is that you might be having unnecessarily. So use common sense. If you need to get off the trail for a little bit to examine something or take a closer look at a leaf or a flower, that's totally okay. And that's part of the unstructured and unrestricted play that Janice mentioned earlier. Just something to consider as we go through all of it. The third thing I want to talk to you is fun. Fun is the reason we do this. It's a lot of fun to go outside. All of us can remember the first time we were introduced to the outdoors and what it did for us and our self-esteem, and why we fell in love with the outdoors. So try to provide time in every activity for just unstructured and unrestricted play. Allow kids to pick up rocks, examine things, explore, and just be immersed in nature. That's one of the great things of childhood and one of the primary reasons we do it. So I encourage you to remember the three things: safety, impact, and fun. And while you're thinking about those three things, there's one last thing that I really want to talk about, and that is training. So we are all students in the outdoors, no matter how many treks you've been on or certifications you have or years of wilderness training. We are all students in the outdoors, and it's always wonderful to try to get more opportunities to learn. So I encourage you to explore different avenues of formal education. Some of those being Knowles is a great place. The Wilderness Medical Institute does some great stuff to make you feel more confident in medical situations. The Red Cross is another great example of a good medical-based training system. Leave No Trace can make you really feel comfortable with setting the tone for principles in the outdoors and ways to protect the environment. There's also skill-specific trainings that have started popping up all over the country. The American Canoeing Association is one of the oldest, and it's a great organization, but there's certifications in mountain biking and climbing and all kinds of great activities that can help you in specific skills. And then lastly, I want to encourage you some of the informal educational opportunities. Like I said before, we are all students, and so taking the opportunity to go out on your own and engage in the outdoors regularly will teach you a lot about how to take others out there and inspire them in the process. So with that being said, I believe those are my slides.
Wonderful. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the way that you can structure different activities for environmental education or for free nature play. And so the activities that we're going to be presenting today can be very easily adaptable and manipulated to fit whatever needs you might have with your group. And so a lot of the activities that we have could be beefed up, sort of, made more structured and be used in an educational setting, maybe be directly tied to a lesson or teaching about scientific concepts or concepts about nature, the natural area that you guys are exploring, whatever that might be. At the same time, even while these can be very educational activities, they can also be deconstructed into a point where it can be more of a starting point for nature-based play. So a lot of the games that games and activities that we're going to address today, and a lot of other ones that you maybe heard around, they can be a little bit more like an introduction to certain skills that children can take away from those activities, and that'll help them connect better with nature in the future. Overall, playing these games, learning these concepts in a fun setting will help them understand things more in depth later on and feel more comfortable exploring and sort of being able to initiate their own nature-based play in the future.
Fantastic. So now we will present our, favorite activities, and mine is what I call the natural masterpiece. It's activities collect and create. So, this activity has great potential for incorporating free play, and it's just a fun sort of crafty activity that the kids really, really enjoy. When I did this activity, I did it with children of, from ages 2 to 6. And they were accompanied by either a parent or an older sibling, but you can definitely adjust this activity for an older audience as well. The purpose of this activity is to, have the children go out and explore a designated nature area and to just look at things a little bit closer through different eyes. And this activity, to do that, the kids collected things that they later used to make like a natural masterpiece. So basically, in this activity, I took thick tape, to make bracelets around the children's wrists, sticky part, facing up around the wrist. Once children had their bracelets, I instructed them to go out and explore and collect things on their bracelets, anything that stuck to their bracelets that they might find fascinating. I provided the children with a plain cardboard box like the picture that you see on the left-hand side, because most of the times that I've done this activity, the children wanted to collect things that didn't stick to their bracelets, like tall grasses, or they found cool big leaves or twigs. So I usually give them that box so that they can kind of rummage through it later too. So I usually give them about 20 minutes or so to collect, and then encourage them to bring their bracelets and all of their treasures that they found back to what I designated as a craft center. You can take them indoors, you can take them to a picnic table, to a blanket set out, whatever you deem as the appropriate place where they can start creating their art. At this craft center, the children took all their natural objects off of their bracelets or out of that box and, set them on a sheet of construction paper. Some made images of animals, some created homes and flowers, and some were, abstract works. So that's more than acceptable. Children interpret things differently than we do. So you can really use this time to allow the children to open up about what they found and how they liked exploring and what they're creating or what they want to create, and what they've stuck to their bracelets. The takeaway for this activity was not only that piece of art or the masterpiece that they've created, but also the experience. Hopefully the children were able to open up to nature and to all the life forms in their, own backyard and in that area. Hopefully we've inspired them to keep exploring and admiring nature. And hopefully, they're going to want to do this activity again. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that, the free play for this activity is limitless. You can let the children open up to their surroundings, let them build in nature and not just on that piece of paper that we're giving them. I also forgot to mention the laminate paper. Later, the construction paper and the image, you can use that laminate paper to kind of bind the two together. But the lesson plan that you will be provided with has more details and questions for learning and things of that sort.
All right. So for my activity, Be the Drop, I pulled from my time in school. While I was in school, I worked for the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment, and I was a glass bottom boat driver, which was an amazing experience. And we would take thousands of kids on field trips and show them Spring Lake, which creates the San Marcos River. It's a beautiful set of springs. And one of the activities that we would do with the children was Be the Drop. And it is essentially an activity that allows children to immerse themselves in the hydrologic cycle. When I first got to San Marcos when I was 18 or 19 years old, I had absolutely no idea where water came from. If you'd asked me, I probably would have said that it came from the faucet. But during my time at school, I gained a really large appreciation for the hydrologic cycle, and a lot of it was thanks to this game. So I take it that, kids will love this activity, but adults love it too. It's just a great, great activity. And it starts with a simple introduction. The introduction is basically designed to teach kids about the hydrologic cycle. This activity takes place in the outdoors, usually in a circle, hopefully in an open field, if the weather permits. And the instructor basically outlines what the hydrologic cycle is, how it works, its different components. And the basic breakdown is water distribution, environmental connectivity, how all things in the cycle relate to each other, and then finally the importance of water conservation and how our own actions can really make a difference in how the water cycle works. After that introduction, the activity takes place, and the activity is based around a couple of materials. I traditionally use pipe cleaners and soda straws, and I also like to use Ziploc bags and laminated cards. And the cards are very important, and for our purposes, we'll call them action cards. Each Ziploc bag contains several hundred pieces of chopped up soda straw of various colors. And in each Ziploc bag, we have drawn on a piece of the hydrologic cycle. So it could be clouds or the ocean or rivers, lakes. It could be a plant or an animal. And I equally distribute all of the children in various pieces or parts of the hydrologic cycle and give them a pipe cleaner and tie a knot in the bottom of it. What I tell them to do next is really cool. So they go from bag to bag and they grab a piece of soda straw, they place it on their pipe cleaner, and then they pick an action card. And the action card will tell them, you were in a cloud and you fell as rain into a lake. Go to the lake area. And so they go to the lake bag and they pick up another piece of soda straw and they put it in on their pipe cleaner, and they become a part of the lake. They do this again and again and again until they've gone through most of it, or they've achieved an entire full pipe cleaner full of soda straw. And basically, it outlines their journey as a water drop. So what's really neat is that once everything is said and done, the children have kind of a take-home. They have a bracelet, and it basically outlines how their journey as a water drop took place. What is really neat is when sometimes children will get stuck in some places, like they'll fall as rain, and then they'll get evaporated again, and then they'll fall as rain again. And so every child's bracelet, like every water droplet, is different. And it's just really neat to see the children engage and feel like they are a part of nature in this critical way. So that's one of my favorite parts of this activity. And I would encourage you to just let the kids explore during the activity and enjoy the whole process. And that's Be a Drop.
Great, thank you, Ryan. So the activity that I would like to share with you guys is called Camouflage. And so Camouflage is a game that focuses around introducing children to concepts of predator-prey relationships and explaining how animals adapt to have camouflaged fur or outward colors that might help them blend in with their surroundings, that aids them in either hunting or hiding. So those are the main sort of scientific parts of it. Personally, I think that another goal that I add to this is just getting the children to feel comfortable being very up close and personal with nature. This game involves hiding. It involves, getting down in the dirt, hiding behind a bush, getting up close and personal with, spaces that they maybe hadn't been in before. So I think it's an excellent opportunity to make it very fun for kids to, get a little bit dirty. So how the game works is that you have one person who's going to be the prey, and I always use the relationship of mountain lions and deers. So I have all of the children play the role of mountain lions, and I'm the deer. And then the main activity is sort of a game of hide and go seek. The one deer will stand in the center of the spot where you're going to be playing and close your eyes, count to 15. While the person who is playing the deer is counting to 15, all of the mountain lions have an opportunity to walk to a hiding spot and hide. And the rules are that from their hiding spot, the children must be able to see you at all times. And the reasoning behind that is I use it as an opportunity to talk about mountain lions and deers, but apparently when mountain lions are hunting in the forest, they might stalk a deer for miles and miles before they actually spring into action and pounce on the deer. And during that time, while they're going through this long stalking process, the mountain lions always have their eyes on the deer so that they can keep track of what's going on and what the deer is doing. Aside from that, the mountain lions, of course, also want to be very close to the deer so that when they do finally spring to action, they'll be close enough that they can pounce directly on the deer. So I explain that to the students, tell the kids that they can hide anywhere they want, but they have to be able to see me at all times. So after you do that, you've counted to 15, the kids are all hiding. Then you open your eyes and you start looking around. And when you see people, you call them out. If you know every name, call them out by their name. Maybe just like, hey, you wearing the light blue sweatshirt, I can see you. And the kids who get caught have to come out and they have to sit out for the rest of the game. And you can explain it in terms of they are decomposing. They weren't able to hunt and capture deer, so they maybe they starved, so they're decomposing. You play this 2 more times. So the first round you count to 15. The second round you do the exact same thing, but you only give them 10 seconds. All of the kids who are remaining in the game, the ones you haven't called out yet, they have those 10 seconds to find a new hiding spot that's closer to you. and they can also see you at all times from their hiding spot. And then you do the same thing again. You open your eyes after counting to 10, you call out whoever it is you see. And then the last round is a little bit different. Instead of counting, instead of saying it's the third round, you give the kids a visual signal. You wave your arms back and forth, and you've established this with them beforehand, that when they see the visual cue of you waving your arms back and forth, that means it's time to come out and hunt the deer. So all of the kids playing the mountain lions who are still in the game, they're still hiding. When they see you waving your arms, it means it's the third round, and they have to come out of their hiding spot, run up to you, and try and high-five you. The first student or the first kid to high-five you is the mountain lion who successfully hunted the deer, and they got to have dinner. So it's a really fun game. The kids love playing it and gets very exciting for them. I remember when I was a kid, I adored playing hide and go seek, and I think this is just kind of an extension of that feeling of having a challenge, and I think a lot of kids are very receptive to trying to hide out for a little bit. So I think that one's really fun. Something that I personally like to do when I'm playing it, sort of like I was saying before about it being an add-on goal that I have in this game, is when I count, would I do, my count to 15 in the first round, my count to 10 in the second round, and then when I do the visual signal, waving my arms for the third round, instead of actually just counting quickly, I'll count very slowly to 15, really let the kids settle into their hiding spot, and then I will usually just stand there and wait for maybe a full minute, maybe longer. It depends on how the group is, but I'll let them think that I'm looking for them, let them think that they are doing a really fantastic job of hiding. I think that having that time for them to just sit there and be comfortable sitting in a bush, be comfortable lying on their belly in the forest stuff, I think that those are really powerful times, and this is a great opportunity to get kids involved. A lot of kids who maybe otherwise would feel really hesitant about lying down on the ground. This is a way to almost, just make it so fun that they lose those preconceived notions they might have. That's something I like to do with that. Kids will ask to play this game again and again. Most times that I introduce it to a group, they'll ask to play round after round. They could just go all day with it. So I think that that's a really cool demonstration of how much they like it. The take home for this activity is that hopefully the children will understand the concept of camouflage, what it is to blend in, understand what it takes and how difficult it can be to successfully blend into the forest, and how much work that could be for both predator and prey animals. And also you can explain this for them in a way that would explain the term adaptation and teach them the concept of animals having special traits that help them to survive.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so in the goal of connecting children to nature, the need for access comes up very often. And one of the most accessible places for kids to play in nature is in their own backyard or in a schoolyard. And so the goal of this lesson is to help families figure out how to create a backyard habitat to attract wildlife to their own backyard. And all of the pictures you see are actually in my own backyard. So the goal of this lesson is that families will understand the necessary elements of habitat, and they'll learn how to turn their own backyard or schoolyard, if you do it with a school group, into a wildlife habitat, and they can get those certified online with the National Wildlife Federation, and it's a very easy process online. And you get one of these cool signs. So the first thing you do when you start the lesson is to teach families that the essential elements of habitat are food, water, cover, and a place to raise young. I like to do this lesson in my yard so that I can ask the kids to point out all of the elements of habitat that they see. So we have a small pond made out of a cattle trough that's been retired. And then we have bird feeders, like the one in the picture, and plants with berries and flowers with nectar, and dense shrubs for cover and trees for nesting. And so you ask the kids to look around and point out anything they see that would be useful for wildlife. And that process by itself really helps the kids look at their surroundings with something new in mind. So this was one of our very first activities back in the fall of 2008. Austin had a citywide challenge to get as many new backyard habitats and schoolyard habitats certified as possible in 1 month. So I got our newly formed Family Nature Club together and taught them the basics of what a habitat is and how to create one in their own yard. Then we built bat boxes for our native Mexican free-tailed bats. I found directions online from the Bat Conservation International website, and my husband pre-cut all of the wood so that the families just had to assemble the boxes. They all brought their own hammers, and then we provided the nails and the wood. And at the end of the afternoon, each family had their own bat box to hang in their own yard. So we have also built birdhouses out of wood, which is the picture on the right. The bat box is at the bottom because they're kind of a strange, real thin box. And the bird box picture is funny because it's clearly in our garage. It was pouring down rain that day, so we ended up having to ram 30 people in our garage to build birdhouses, which was pretty fun, and everybody still remembers it, even though it was quite a while ago. After the bird box building, all the kids went outside and played in the rain too, so that made it pretty memorable. So over the last 7 years, we've done this lesson several times to create backyard habitats. We've built birdhouses out of clay, we've built toad abodes, and we've built several types of bird feeders. For small projects, I like to set them up in stations during one afternoon, especially if you have multiple age groups. And for larger projects, I have just one project set up at a time. So I've put all of the directions for all of the different projects we've done to create backyard habitat all on the Google Drive document that you guys will have access to. So there's links to birdhouse designs and bat houses and sort of how to lay out that lesson. The take home from this activity is that the kids will get to create one element or many elements of a backyard habitat to take home or to put up in their schoolyard. But the main goal is to have kids see their own yard or their own schoolyard as a place to look for wildlife so that they'll be inspired to connect to nature every day in the most accessible place of all. Last time we did this backyard habitat lesson, I was standing in my yard telling the families about attracting wildlife to the yard. And right above my head, behind me while I was talking, there was a beautiful yellow-crowned night heron, which is the bottom right picture, literally above my head. And we live right in central Austin, so it was there could not have been more perfect timing showing interesting wildlife that can come into your yard if you give it a place to live and a reason to be there. So that was pretty exciting. It was as though I'd put the bird there. After building an element of backyard habitat or any other project or lesson we might be doing, I always leave plenty of time for unstructured play. After the backyard habitat lesson, the kids' play naturally centers around searching for critters, and they look for lizards and caterpillars, like the monarch caterpillar in the picture, pill bugs and snails, and every once in a while a kid gets really lucky and finds a little rough earth snake or praying mantis or something a little more out of the ordinary. So that brings us to the importance of free play. Unstructured playtime increases focus, it increases attention span, it decreases stress, and it strengthens executive function. Children learn best when they're allowed to play and follow their interests. They learn cooperation, problem solving, and how to work with others. They learn to think creatively when their minds are allowed to wander without adult direction. And they become interested in the world around them if they're allowed to explore. Children look at the world with different eyes than most adults do. If an adult dictates how a kid spends their time and how they play, then everyone will miss out on the opportunity to see the world through a child's eyes. Everyone will miss the discoveries, the creativity, and the spontaneous and authentic learning. For example, when I walked up to this, what used to be a pond, it was a sad scene to me. This was a beautiful pond with all kinds of dragonflies and damselflies in it, and the drought in Texas made it look like this instead. And so what I saw was a sad scene. What the kids saw was completely different. They found tiny frogs. They used the sticks that were on the ground and the long grasses to make bows and arrows. They built extremely elaborate shelters, which was pretty amazing, out of the grasses and plants that had grown up in the pond. And they even found spots to hide from the wind and have a picnic. So what's funny about this day is that the kids all look really happy, but it was 45 degrees and drizzling, and we had about 50 people outside. And so you would think that they would want to do the activity real fast and then run inside, but no, they actually, even the parents built shelters, and the family spent more than 2 hours using their creativity, cooperating, and engaging with the natural world. This was 2 years ago, and the kids still talk about it because unstructured play always makes the biggest impression. So a second example is we were camping at Garner State Park, and we found a bunch of trash, which was strangely looked like construction debris in a campsite, in a groomed campsite area. So to the adults, it was a sad sight that there was just stuff everywhere. The kids saw this, they ran over to the table and grabbed Ziploc bags from breakfast, and then a couple they'd already found on the ground that were blowing in the wind from other groups. And they decided to make a boat. And I would have never in my wildest dreams thought Ziploc bags and construction debris, boat, of course. But they were able to make a boat that could actually hold a 10-year-old boy out of the water, which was amazing. And it was an incredible lesson in physics, and it was so creative. And as an adult, I would have just picked up the trash and thrown it away. The kids, when they're given unstructured time, especially in a group of kids of different ages and kids that are interested in hanging out together, they use their creativity and they come up with plans that I never would have thought of in a million years. So arguably, the most important aspect of academic success is a love of learning. And the best way to accomplish that is to allow kids to explore and create outdoors with nature as their inspiration and long stretches of unstructured time to do their work. So what happens when you let kids run free? They discover, learn, and create in ways an adult can hardly even imagine. Kids are happier, healthier, smarter, and more creative when they have unstructured time to play outdoors. And I think that this moves us on to the question and answer.
It sure does. Thank you, Heather, and thank you to all the presenters. It's been a great process to hear this and to be part of the planning of it with you. We would like to open up the floor for questions or comments. If you could type them into the chat box, which should be down on your left screen, we will address them. If you have a question for one of the specific presenters, then you can address it specifically to someone, or we'll just take them as they come, either way. It's so quiet. Heather, let me ask you. Oh, wait, here we go. Sylvia Busby from San Diego, California says, awesome. I wonder if anyone, let me scroll back down, knows about the connection between the growing field of STEAM with the Children in Nature movement. Heather, I know you work with some homeschooling groups. Do you have any, is STEAM it's growing out here in California, particularly in San Diego, I can say. Do you guys have STEAM movements out in Austin? And if so, do you, when you work with some homeschooling groups, do you incorporate those aspects?
We do, actually. We actually teach a junior ecologist class to homeschoolers within Austin Families in Nature. And I think that STEAM is really helpful when you're bringing lessons to a classroom or to a homeschool group, or if you're trying to get grant funding, because a lot of corporations will provide funding for STEAM. And so it's a very big topic. I have a particular interest in connecting art with science, because so many kids get that attitude of I'm bad at math, I'm bad at science, especially girls. And when you say, look at the connection between art and science and how married they really are, it helps. And so I actually love that they put the art into STEAM instead of it just being STEM now. And so I know Texas Parks and Wildlife does a huge program for arts in the park where they're connecting nature and art pretty often. So I would say it's a big topic around here as well.
Sylvia, I see that you have a second part. Is there anything out there like resources or anything? The next generation science standards I believe they're working, at least I know here in San Diego, they're working some toward connecting those, and as lessons are created through SDCAN and the San Diego County Office of Education, they're addressing some of those standards with STEAM and kind of connecting them up. I don't know of any national effort, and I don't know of any other resources besides that. So we can certainly look into it. Be happy to work with you on that.
I just saw today that the NAAEE just released the environmental education standards for multiple states as well. I don't know if that's helpful.
Oh, great. Could you shoot me that in an email, please?
Sure.
A link or the information that you just shared, Heather?
Yes.
Great. And Tina Ortiz from Houston Parks and Rec would like to know if we can get a copy of the presenter slides and notes. It is too big of a file to send. However, I can share a link on the Google Drive. I will do that in a follow-up email. I will be sending a link to the slides themselves. I will be sending a link to the Google Drive that has these lessons, these structured activities that were presented tonight, as well as others, and then also to the developmental characteristic sheets that were described tonight as well. So you'll get a variety of resources after this, and I just want to really emphasize, as the presenters did tonight, that as we're incorporating structured activities into our work with children, I basically beg and implore you to also, as you are able in whatever position you're in, really facilitate and let kids have that free time to play and explore, because so many minutes of kids' days are structured now. They don't have that unstructured time. So use them as a bridge, as the presenters said. So Alicia says, thank you for the ideas. I am glad to share that. We will have a family camp out here at Santa Barbara with families organized by a child care center and Wilderness Youth Project. Awesome, Alicia. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see, Kelly Decker, Ryan, this one is for you. For the bracelets, what kind of, oh no, I'm sorry. This is for the create and collect. For the bracelets, what kind of tape do you use? Do the materials rip when they are taken off? And how do you handle the dichotomy of leaving everything in nature in its place and collecting?
Okay, so the tape that we that I've used previously is like a scotch, like a paper tape. We've never had issues of, any of the materials ripping from the bracelets. As far as collecting goes, we definitely educate the kids first as to, and the parents, mostly the parents, because when you're working with such a young group, it's hard to teach kids in such a short span of time. But, we emphasize to the parents that, we don't rip things, we don't stomp on things that we see. We collect things that are either fallen off or, we emphasize that respect aspect in the lesson. Most of the time I've never had issues as far as, when the kids take their artwork home, they take it home and, they have something to look back on. But I've never had an issue with, people being disrespectful.
Thank you. And I think there's a difference also between pulling a flower off of a stalk and finding leaves of a flower on the ground too. So yeah, it gets back to where you are and respecting the park rules. So this is an activity obviously that you would do where you're allowed to have some contact with the nature itself. Thank you. Okay, Bill Kilburn from Burlington, Ontario. All curriculum subjects can be taught using nature. Yep. It's connected to ON, I'm assuming is Ontario standards, but check out our resources and he's given his website, which is www.back2nature.ca/resources-research. Thank you very much for sharing that. Carmen Field from Homer, Alaska. Hey, Carmen. Thank you, Janice, and all of you presenters. It's great to hear how others are engaging kids in the outdoors. Thank you, Carmen, for being here. Let's see, Kelly Decker, great info. Thank you. Bill Kilburn, kids have to use nature to connect with it. Teach responsible use, not no trace, which isn't possible. Yep. Okay, we have a few more minutes. If anybody has any other questions or comments, we will be happy to address them.
This is Alexis. I just wanted to jump in and address a question that was posted earlier. Someone was just asking for some clarification about the camouflage game that I talked about.
I'm sorry, I missed. Go for it.
No worries. So in that game, the person who's playing the deer, and that's for me in the situations I play it, usually a teacher, that person doesn't move their feet when they're looking for the kids who are out there hiding. You can bend, you can lean, you can turn around, but you shouldn't be walking out into the area. The idea is that the kids can be hiding just well enough to be completely out of view for you where you're standing right then, but if you start moving, I guess you would be able to see them really easily. That is part of how they are able to keep their eyes on you at all times. So a lot of times they can be peeking out a tiny bit, and if you were to move and walk around, they wouldn't be able to do that in the same manner.
Thank you. I'm curious. We have and one more comment from Alicia Jimenez, which is have a wonderful time in the gathering, which is the conference in April. And I'm wondering if you all could give a written shout out if you are going to make it to the conference, just out of curiosity. I know that we sold out some time ago, and there's quite a wait list, which is both good and bad. But I'm okay. Alexis wishes she could be there. I wish you could be there too, Alexis.
Yeah.
Bill will be there. Awesome, Bill. I look forward to meeting you. Carolina will be there. Yay. Yeah, Carmen. Yes, Carmen, I hear it. April is a really busy season. So, oh, bummer. Well, hopefully next year, Carmen. It's been a while since I saw you. Ryan will, of course, be there. Heather will, of course, be there. I will be there. Well, I think that unless there are any, I'm going to give you like one more second to throw out a last minute question if you have one. Otherwise, we will go ahead and close this down. Please feel free, if something comes up later, you can always reach out to us here at the Children in Nature Network. My email, most of our emails are just simply our first names and followed by the childrenandnature.org. So, for instance, my email would be janice@childrenandnature.org, everything spelled out. So feel free to email me or anyone else in the network if you need any help or have any other questions. Thanks again to our presenters. Thanks again to Amy for helping out behind the scenes. Juan, it was great having you on. And we will see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Amy, do you want to stop the recording? Me too, Kelly. Thanks, everyone. Love being united in kids and nature play. It's awesome, isn't it? It just attracts good people. We did a webinar back in November on family nature clubs, and we have one here in San Diego. I know Heather's got one as well. There's a lot of them running around out there now, more and more as we speak. And I tell you, just in general, with the network, with our family nature club, as we do other outreach and stuff, it just brings good people together. So thanks for making that comment, Kelly.
Okay.
And thanks, everyone. That's a wrap.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.